thank you all for inviting here to Riga, to National Library. I'm first time here, not in Riga of course, but in National Library I'm really first time. And it was a quite short notice to me to arrive here, but anyway, it's quite. We were not a pilot project in this foundation. We were somewhere in the middle. But maybe I'll tell a little bit background why it all started, because everything has some kind of starting point, everything has some reason. And our Estonian Museum reform, what is now really started now 2012, it was a third attempt. Because before it was a first attempt, it was around in the very beginning of 2000, 2001, 2002, and then we had a pilot project in North Estonia, and it's called Virumaa Museums, and it was Virumaa County Museums, and there were connected small museums in the whole body, and it was one of the first. It was really the first foundation in 2002. But after that was an idea to create the same kind of foundations in the other municipality museums in Estonia. But it was not very positive thought, and so many municipality museums were absolutely against it. And then all this reform just put away for a couple of years. Then in 2008, 2009, it started again. The basis was quite the same, but now the ministry started to talk about maybe it's not only the municipality museums, maybe we must look around, maybe some other museums, maybe they are not operating very well, maybe they are not leaded very well, maybe it's necessary to unite some of the museums. And in 2009, in 2010, when it started, it was economically very bad years to Estonia. Absolutely, quite big crisis. A lot of budget were cut away from museums, from us institutions also. We lost 1/3 of our budget in 2008, 2009. And then we started our first big development project in Seaplane Harbour. And to us, it was a really great help, but it was a most hard period to many museums in Estonia, and also to us. This year, 2008, 2009. But after that, then there is a pilot project. This first one, Virumaa Museums in North Estonia. And the second one was a small museum in the middle of Estonia about the famous writer Anton Hansen Tammsaare and his museum in Vargamäe. And after, now, I heard a lot of words about the state institutions are not very flexible. Yes, indeed, it's quite correct. But every state institution has their own, they're not the same. And museum as a state institution is, in an Estonian case, it was quite flexible also before. It wasn't in that way, even before a reform in Estonia, that you must approve your ticket prices via government half a year's time. No, it wasn't in that way, absolutely. But there were some other reasons. And that's one of the main points what were discussed in 2010, in 2012, because the main reform, all this started in 2012. And in 2012, it was also quite good time to start, because economically the basis was already quite good in Estonia, and it was possible to move on with some of the thoughts. And of course, every reform is not so easy and simple. And if it's going towards to the museum people, it's not easy at all. I know it myself, And for the very first time, I was quite. I was not the side of the reform, absolutely not. And but there are some things, some positive things. If you start to look it over, what can make this thing positive? I can tell you later. It's quite tricky thing. It's not so easy at all, and it's absolutely not easy. But it gives you some possibilities, maybe more. And okay, maybe the list. Now, we start, as I said, 2012, but there is one main thing in Estonia, and I haven't heard it here, because we can arrange foundations, but collections are still remaining to the state possession. It's without any discussion at all. But to have these collections, the museum must run and use those collections, and after that it means that you must, foundation and ministry, draw a contract between how, say, in the future they run it, and of course ministry gives you some support money to take over these collections. And now at the moment we have in now 2019, in the beginning of the year, we have 13 foundations, and founded by state, and 9 founded by local governments. The other reason why it was mainly concerned to the municipality museum, to the government, local governments museum, it was that the state wanted to have some additional money from these local governments to put to the museum's development. That's the simple reason, nothing else. And quite in many ways it goes back to the money, to the resources, and how it's divided. And then it was decided to create museums, foundations with some other partners. Not only some other museums. There can be also partners as a technical high school. There can be some other institution as well. There can be partner of from the Board of Antiquities. It's quite colorful world. It's not very black and white system in Estonia, because we have so many other examples also. And the only thing what was agreed that the state institutions will remain Estonian National Museum in Tartu. It will remain, and also War Museum in Tallinn, under the Ministry of Defense. And that's one of the municipality museums who started the reform of the municipality museums in Estonia. It's the Narva Museum. It was also quite important footstep to Narva, because after that the foundation were founded, and Narva put some money and state put some money, and they had some troubled times in last years, but now they are moving on quite in quite peaceful way, and this Herman Castle, this renovation is going on in quite positive way. And now, 2012 and 2018, some museums disappeared. That's for true, and it's not in that way that everyone will survive. Maybe it's not very positive thing to say, but that's a reality. Some museums were united, and only one museum were closed, shut down totally. It was Tartu, close to the Tartu County Museum, and the main reason was it was very badly run, and collections were not in order, and absolutely it was clear reason to shut it down and move these collections to the National Museum. And some of the small southern Estonian museums were united to the Southern Estonian, we call it Võru Institute, and what is supervised by Ministry of Culture. And Estonian Road Museum stayed separately and still is under the road administration government. And Estonian Firefighting Museum is still a governmental authority under the Estonian Rescue Board, and also the Estonian National History Museum. There are some few examples also, but the differences, but that's quite the main thing. And as we are not finished in Estonia with all this reform, we go on. In 2009, this year, and I guess it's 2020 also, because this process, I can even see right now here, it might be too optimistic, because if I start to look this Viljandi County Museum, to organize a foundation in Viljandi, it's a quite old plan. It goes 3-4 years back, but now they are just moving to that direction. And also Tartu Art Museum, it's not an easy case study also. And but some of these, as I said, is Palamuse Oskar Lutz Writer Museum. It's not clear yet what kind of foundation body it will be, what kind of partners it will be. One thing what I can see here, it's prepared already 1.5 years before. And it can be also quite tricky. In some ways, it's to unite two museums in Tallinn, Estonian Museum of Applied Art and Design and Museum of Estonian Architecture as a foundation of state. It can be tricky. I know both directors very well, but they are both very positive at the moment. But let's see what will happen. And the very different case is in the Aibalan Museum. It's an Estonian Swedes Museum in the western part of Estonia. And there is another case where the Läänemaa, it's a Western County Museum in Haapsalu, and under this foundation we'll create now another foundation, as this is Estonian Swedes Museum. Because museum law gives possibility, if you are a foundation, you can unite some other foundations also, and you can, there is some possibilities. Now some words about Maritime Museum also. That's our seaplane harbour with the ships, with the harbour, and I'm not telling about this. This is already old story, in our case is as I said, we were not in the first leading position to get to move the foundation, but I said to Ministry, if it decided, let's do it. And but then after 1 year and 1.5 years, some other maybe more museums with more problems just stepped forward, and we stayed a little bit behind. But nevertheless, it didn't bother me, because we had quite great years in this, and it was not a great problem. But finally, of course, in the beginning of 2017, in January, was agreed in the government that yes, now Estonian Maritime Museum will have this legal status to turn to the foundation, and then it started. Now some practical things. It's very easy to tell, and we turn the museum to the foundations. Now you will have some hints what will really happen. it, it, it doesn't go so smoothly, even if you really want to go. It takes some time, and that's quite obvious. And one interesting thing is in the Estonian case that even if our government is said, yes, foundation is now founded, you can go on. It doesn't mean that the state institution, Estonian Maritime Museum, immediately stops the activities. In a couple of months, as you can see, you run the both. You run the old state museum, and you run temporarily this new foundation also, but you are just temporarily in that position. You don't know, will you be also is a later leader also? You don't know it, absolutely. But you must run in 3 months' time, you must run those museums both. And it's necessary for that you must give all your possessions, collections, agreements, and do the new foundations. And you must have an agreement with overhanding the collections also. Also real estate building. It's a quite long process. And after that, after all this, as I said here, in 1st of April, we started with agreements with the staff. And as we are around 96 persons in the museum, it's also quite a big job to do. And finally, in the 1st of May, the new Estonian Maritime Museum Foundation start with a full rights, and as a position of director will transform to the board member. What's different? We are still fully responsible for the activity plan, development plan, budget, investment structure, and so on. But we need approval to this from the supervisory board. And we do it, museum board member and supervisory board member, we meet regular basis 4 or 5 times per year. In urgent matters, it's possible to organize a meeting via email and later sign the protocol also digitally. And there is also, when I applied to the position of director, I applied from the special competition what was declared by the Minister of Culture. Now it's now who sign your job agreement is a supervisory board, or the chairman of the supervisory board. That's a difference. But there is still things that supervisory, small difference. Supervisory board can declare open competition to this board member, or they can just appoint one of these. In my case, I was a little bit lucky because I was appointed directly to the board member, but in 3 years time. It means that my 2020 in March, next year in March, I will be another decision point. Shall I go on? Shall the supervisory board appoint me again, or will be an open competition? I don't know yet. But in my case, it's a quite. I haven't done it several times before, because starting from 1998, when I first time applied the position of Maritime Museum as a director, I had 5 competitions, and every time I must apply after 5 years again and again and again. Of course, it's a little bit. It takes some nerve. It takes some nerve to do it, and but it's possible. No. But and some other things that running a museum is in more or less like another enterprise, because you must very accurately look your budget and so on. And the good things, what it is, some practical things that, of course, I spoke about the collections, but it's before you can overhand something, and you must have very actually inventory. Collections, every possession what you have, inventory collections 2 times, and all what you have, absolutely all. It's a quite horrible time to collection keepers. It's not so easy at all. But finally, if it's done, you have a quite great feeling, because you really know what you have not, and you know that the things are in very well order. And it's the same process with every legislation act in your museum, agreements, internal rights, what you have, everything you must do newly, absolutely everything. And what else? And if you start with a foundation, it's quite good time, good moment to start look what kind of structure you need in the museum. Does the old structure was good enough, or is it possible to do the necessary changes? Then it's a very good time to do it. And of course, every supervisory board member needs very much guidance and information about museum, because they are people outside. They don't know about museums not so much well. But also in Estonian case, it was that one people from Ministry of Finance, one from Ministry of Culture, they must to be in as a board members in Estonia. And in our case, we were quite lucky that I had 2 suggestions to have also board member to our director of our Maritime Academy. He's there, and he's a chairman of the supervisory board. And then I offered that one of our leading companies, Alexela Oil, chairman, will be part of also our supervisory board, and he is also part of supervisory board. Now, and okay, now it's something what we have done afterwards, and that's very short what we are doing, how we are running some of the things, and because maybe we are doing too many meetings, but we are used to it, and we are used to have meetings, and we are used to that if the meeting is finished, next day you will have a protocol. Everyone will have. It's everyone is written down, and no exception. And we will have this meeting of head of divisions. That's my most closest partners. Altogether 5, and division meetings. And what has been helped to us in last year is a larger strategic planning meetings in different locations with heads of divisions and other leaders from the museums. Normally 13 to 18 people, and because we have a strategic plan to our museum, starting from we just review it every year, and now strategic plan is up to 2023, but as we are quite many of people to 80, okay, now it's more already, maybe 98. It's you must have twice a year all your staff united in one room, and it's spring and autumn, and it doesn't matter. It's a simple guide or just a keeper and or head of division. They must be there, and they will have all information about the museum current situation, also financial situation, how much we earned, what kind of investment plan we have, what kind of exhibition we have ahead, and etc., etc. And it's a whole day. It's a whole day, and and of course questions and answers and so on. And something, some more things. Maybe my time is okay. Now I stop. I'm not telling it further on. It's unfortunate. It's in Estonian, but here you can see it's nowadays structure is it's not very easy, but to me it's already quite easy. But anyway, it's the main thing is that here is a supervisory board. Here is me, and after that is collections, research altogether, all our marketing affairs and all what's connected to the public, and also education is here. All what's connected to the financial, this different competition, procurement, and etc., bookkeeping. And here is our real estate, because in our case is we as a foundation we own also the real estate. We own the in Tallinn old towns is Fat Margaret, Big Sea Gate, Gunpowder Cellars. We are the owners now of this. But we are not owning the Seaplan Harbour. That's a difference again. And that it is Fat Margaret, Seaplan hangars, and just a short thing that we are renovating now this Fat Margaret and it will be ready by the end of this year. It's a project to 7.4 million euros, and it has been much more complicated even projects than Seaplan Harbour to me, because something to do in a Tallinn Old Town, it's fascinating, it's interesting, but quite painful. Quite painful, and even some money is not the question at the moment. Many other things, and yeah, sooner and by the end of November, it will be in that way. And the final thing is, and maybe it's not very positive also, but it's a reality. But every juridical form governing the museums are anyways different restrictions and limits anyway. But there are zero possibilities that somewhere is ideal for which can fulfill all museum dreams. Doesn't exist. But we must still do our best. Thank you.
Please join me here. Hand clapping for proof you can survive a government's reform. Spellbound. I think it is a shock how much pain you have to expect when you embark on something like and then they say that Estonians are slow.
I have heard it also.
Where were we in 2008? I'm puzzled. Why didn't we choose the same route to go? But anyway, my list of questions is for I wish that Culture Ministry would lock you with our National Museum directors for a week or something and deliver you sandwiches and water. So I don't know where to start, really. Urmas, now I think you elaborated a lot that you had a change of heart.
Yeah.
You had a change of heart. First, you were skeptical about it.
Yes, I was quite skeptical. There is one additional thing also, and what difference and what supervisory board, after that, if you are a foundation, supervisory board can sign an agreement, and they sign agreement with a different auditions. You will have a financial audition and you will have internal audition. And these agreements are signed by the chairman of the supervisory board. They are like a controlling party to you. And in many ways it's a quite great control, but it keeps you fit.
Okay.
Somehow it's also you can't be lazy. But yeah.
Right. Fit for purpose. But you see why I'm asking this question, because a year ago and even by now I guess we are getting a lot of a backlash. Anyone we talk, from the ministry down to museum directors. And there is such a potential in a positive experience. And when you say that not even the states, but also the municipalities, so benefits of a new model, and turn some of their museums on.
No, it's more or less okay. Yeah, but I guess it's a more critical part are now over. Some are satisfied, some were not. As I said, there is no very right solution. There are always different tones.
Certainly, and as you said, you're not turning two of your national museums into foundations.
No.
Tartu Rahva Museum and the War Museum in Tallinn. Though I know that they have a new director, which means that they have terminated agreements with their directors, even being state institutions.
In state museums, as I said, when I applied first time in '98, Estonian Maritime Museum was a state museum, but then was a maximum term to me 5 years.
Right.
Absolutely.
Even there was a mechanism.
Even there it was in '98.
Right.
We had a new museum law in '90s, and now it's added some other different things, but it wasn't that way.
So, and how would you then phrase it, being a representative from a nation of 1 million? In comparison to this nation, which is
1.3.
1.3, good for you. And you are growing it. By comparison to Latvia, which is 2 something point, maybe 1, and Lithuania, which is 3 something point. How dangerous it is that every 5 or something years, a major national museum director has to go through without a certainty that you would be approved. What's your career perspectives? Is it that dangerous?
I'm not a good example in this because I have won several competitions.
Yeah, so bad example. You're just successful every time you show up.
But of course, last of these they were not so easy at all because if you build something, as I built seaplane hangar and this process, and during this big process, you will have sometimes some small quarrels with the ministry. It happens. It doesn't matter that finally you agree, but in some process you can be in just the opposite, and it happened to me also. And we had a disagreement how much we must spend to in the seaplane harbour case. It was how much we must spend to the exhibition, to the main exhibition, and how much. And it was quite hard at the first to explain that, okay, seaplane hangar itself is a unique building, I know it by heart. And the renovation of this reinforced concrete, yes, of course, without any question. But it must be here, there inside also the very remarkable exhibition. And there was some of the points that maybe for the first it sounds too expensive, but I must say I was right because now we have had visitors more than 1.7 million in a seaplane hangar, and
so no surprise they're keeping you there for the next consecutive term. It's just as simple as that. And I guess the whole institution and its functioning would not grind to a halt when a director leaves and somebody comes into his place. I guess even in a nation of million of inhabitants or so.
Serious.
But then those painful things you mentioned. You mentioned museums disappearing or being closed or being united.
Every time it's quite painful. It's not so easy at all, and because from the minister's side, it's always it looks. Sometimes we call it by the. It's just one line on a big table.
Right, but there must be a justification to go through that phase.
But in reality, it's a lot of insight, and it's in every case is sometimes it's a human side is
human factor.
It's quite
always present. As soon as you wake up, it's present, and you look in the mirror. Right. Now, I don't know
Maybe-
what else I should focus on, because there's so much, and I wish that we continue and really have some of your experiences almost a role model how we should.
Maybe one positive moment also that, of course, in our case, as in Rondale, they have earned quite a much, and we have earned quite a much, and during these last years, and at our yearly revenue is what we earn ourselves. It's around 3 million euros, and we have had possibility to kept some of this money, as I said,
Yes.
and to just hold it, and not to just use it in small different things, and hold it for a big exhibitions, but to have just
A blockbusters where you
blockbusters,
bring in.
but every that kind of blockbuster exhibition cost about 600,000, 650,000
Well,
something.
do we
euros.
have in this country any exhibition? that
Yes,
we would
yes,
have
you
made?
have, you have.
Do we? Maybe for the centenary celebrations. But you earn that money yourself, and then
Yes,
you
of
are
course,
able
yes,
to
of course,
invest
yes.
it in
All money what we
exhibitions.
put to the exhibitions, temporary exhibitions, it's not the governmental money. It's owned by ourselves, and without any loans at all. And one thing, well, as I said, with finishing this year this Fat Margaret and the renovations, the total project is 7.4 million. And we started this project when we had, to say, in our bank account around 3 million of money, 3 million euros. And then I was quite, I guess that's, I was quite sure we can go on. Then we applied money from European Union. We got 2 million from European Union to this renovation. And then we applied money from the Minister of Finance and Culture. We got also from there. And now it's financed this way that we put also 2 million to this our Fat Margaret.
You can invest yourself.
Yeah,
for
and
what you
now we can invest
then-
and invest.
Right,
in,
but then this question of a grant in aid, is it fixed for your museum, or it depends on how much you earn yourself, and then
no, it's not depend. We will have
it's
quite
not
a
fixed.
fix. Yeah. No, absolutely not. We were not punished.
There you go.
But there is another. Every coin has two sides. There is also when we are not very successful. Some bad things also. We are not very successful to have some sponsors. Absolutely not. We are like childs in that way. Not compared to the art museum. If the art museum director Silja Helme was here, she can tell about a lot of sponsors.
A lot of sponsors. It's art. Dina,
Not us.
question there
I
in
think
the
my
audience.
question was just asking.
Not us,
I
not
wanted
us.
to ask you about fundraising. and
No,
whether the numbers
fundraising
are
is very poor and absolutely poor. Very few. We have something. We have some other projects, but not so much. And everyone, when I started to speak with some of the companies, they said, "Okay, wow, you are so successful, but why you ask? Why you ask additional
Yeah.
more?"
Yeah.
It's the same simple reason. Yeah.
Make more humble look.
We must be, but we are not very humble also.
Right, well, you shouldn't be, because well, you're prominent there in the harbour, docklands. Any question in the audience? Because we're running slightly late.
Yeah. I
And
know.
then-
I'm sorry.
But I promise this will get viral. Well, at least who's looking into these things in this country, it will be a hit.
I'm just curious
Okay.
about what was what you did when you become a foundation? What was that your dream, what you can now and you could not before? What is your first?
How you sum it up? How this democratization and liberalisation worked for you?
I changed the museum structure.
Structure.
Yeah, totally.
But weren't you able to do that before?
Yes, I was able to do it before, but it was possible to do it before, but then it's a good moment to do it. And because many reasons. It's a really good time to do it because everyone expected some changes.
Yeah, right.
And but you must hold your not to do it in very extreme way, but just use your senses. But it's good time to move on, do some changes right in this moment.
In that elaborate scheme you have in Estonian, where curators go, like where social media goes, like can you just there's this four big departments. So how do you
it's a
structure?
cooperative services. There are a lot of marketing educators there are under this.
Curators too.
Yeah, and not all curators. Some other curators. We call this. We have project leaders, and project leaders. If we do a big exhibition, as I said, 600,000 or a little bit less or more, and for this you need a project leader who holds it all together. But he or she is not a curator. He or she doesn't know exactly the content of this, but he holds it as a project leader together. And to run this in also smoothly, what they put on the show, you must have curator one or two also, but you must have a project leader. And we are started to just to grow a good project leader, and to whom you can just be very sure that this more than 500,000 of investment will used in good way, and the exhibition will open exactly in that date. It needs quite a lot of learning.
Yeah, I guess you draw somebody in. Yeah, it's not necessarily homegrown talents. I think we should close on this note.
Yeah.